Dear friends, welcome to yet another installment of Strategic Power. In this video, we will address Russia's plan to mobilize more than 300,000 soldiers and the possible intervention of NATO in the war in Ukraine due to Russian advances. We will also discuss Ukrainian attacks in Russia and the forecast that it is only a matter of time before NATO troops operate openly on Ukrainian territory. But can these attacks be considered acts of state terror? Watch until the end to find out, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. According to information from the newspaper Politico, which cited high-ranking Ukrainian military officials, there is an imminent risk of collapse on the front of the Ukrainian armed forces if the Russian army launches a concentrated attack at a specific point. The article highlights that Ukrainian military personnel are concerned about the possibility of a rupture on the front, especially if Russian generals concentrate their efforts at a specific point. The Ukrainian commanders point to several factors contributing to the fragility of the defense, including the numerical superiority of the Russian army and the extensive use of gliding air bombs. One officer also noted that the West no longer seems willing to help Ukraine face the Russian offensive. "We are facing a military crisis. Russia is consolidating its forces and seems ready to launch a powerful attack in August, or even sooner," the military official consulted by the newspaper expressed his concern. In a previous meeting with the leadership of the Russian armed forces, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu reported that since January, Ukrainian troops have suffered more than 880,000 casualties, including 14 units of various equipment, such as more than 1,200 tanks and armored vehicles. He noted that after the failure of last year's counter-offensive, Ukrainian forces have unsuccessfully tried to consolidate in certain positions, while Russian forces continue to push the Ukrainian army westward. Today in Kyiv, during a joint press conference with Finnish President Alexander Stubb, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that Russia is preparing to mobilize more than 300,000 soldiers by June the 1st. Ukraine's military intelligence had previously predicted that Russia would step up its mobilization efforts after Russian President Vladimir Putin secured his fifth term in March. Putin signed a decree on March 31st to conscript 150,000 citizens as part of his regular spring conscription campaign. According to information from the UK Ministry of Defence, Russia is recruiting around 30,000 people per month to bolster its war efforts. Meanwhile, Ukraine is also exploring ways to mobilize more troops, and an updated mobilization bill is being debated in Parliament. When a journalist asked Zelensky how many troops Ukraine intends to mobilize this year, he stated that the country does not need 500,000 soldiers, but refrained from providing an exact number. It is important to remember that the Ukrainian president had mentioned last December that the initial version of the mobilization bill provided for the recruitment of between 450,000 and 500,000 additional soldiers. However, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, Oleksandr Syrsky, stated last Friday that that number was considerably reduced. Last Sunday, members of the 9th Russian Brigade raised the flag on a building in the northwest of Pavatkin, Koi, confirming Russian control over most of the village and indicating new Russian advances west of Avdiivka, worsening the situation for Ukraine. Security and international relations analyst Mark Sloboda predicts that NATO troops will soon begin operating openly in the country. He also suggests that Ukraine may intensify attacks on Russia while its own troops withdraw. According to Sloboda, with Russian advances on the battlefield accelerating and desperation in Kyiv increasing, Ukraine will continue to carry out more unconventional and dirty actions, such as terrorist attacks. He emphasizes that it is only a matter of time before troops from NATO member states are operating openly on Ukrainian soil. Regarding the recent attack on the concert hall in Krasnogorsk, in the Moscow region, Sloboda noted that although Ukraine has not claimed responsibility for the attack, they recently admitted to carrying out almost all recent attacks against Russia, which they previously denied. The analyst explains that the head of Ukraine's security service, Vasyl Malyuk, admitted on Ukrainian television that they carried out all attacks against Russia, including the attack on the Crimean Bridge, but still deny having attacked Krasnogorsk. However, Sloboda was criticized for calling Ukraine's attacks in Russia acts of state terror and suggesting that Moscow is dismantling an international terrorist network. The analyst did not address the crucial point that it was Russia that initiated a devastating war within Ukrainian territory, and that both countries are at war. The escalation of the war in Ukraine seems inevitable, with Russia preparing a new massive offensive of 300,000 soldiers and Russian advances pushing Ukrainian forces toward collapse. NATO's direct intervention on Ukrainian territory may be the only alternative to contain Moscow's military might. Kyiv's attacks on Russian soil will only tend to further inflame tensions, leading to an unprecedented spiral of violence. Are we on the brink of a third world war? The question that won't be silenced. Leave your comments on what may be to come in this minefield that is the conflict in Ukraine. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date with all the latest developments.